So in Amnesia the Bunker, Shellshock difficulty is the hardest non-custom difficulty that you can play in this game. So of course I had to make a video about it. The differences between the other difficulties largely comes down to the saving mechanic, and in that it's supposedly more random than the other difficulties. In regards to the lockers, it is, but in regards to practically everything else, I feel that it's largely the same. In fact, too similar to the other difficulties. But this is going to be a full playthrough that I'm going to speed up at times and commentate at certain events that I think are relevant. This whole run took about 2 hours 15 minutes, and I have to say that this run is probably the best that I've ever completed. I've done this 3 or 4 times now, and this was easily the cleanest. It happened to give me a lot more fuel than usual, which is always helpful. So let's just get on with it. Now in the beginning area there are some crates that you can find. You can bust against the wall to see if you can get anything out of them. In Shellshock I don't think I ever do, but I always try it anyway. You don't start with a gun in Shellshock difficulty, so the man who wants you to kill him will not be there. Neither will the ammo. And at this point we're just trying to salvage anything we can, although I don't know if anything is certain except for the fuel right there in that room with the dead bodies. Now as you can see here, we have wooden doors guarding the safe room, which is another new thing that they added in Shellshock difficulty. So he can break those doors down and enter the safe room, but he cannot enter the generator room if you've closed that door. So that's going to end up being our safe haven for most of the playthrough here. Since saving fuel is so limited, we're going to try our best to space out our saves. I'm not going to save here at least until I've searched all of the previous area, the safe room, and then we go to the locker area and we grab everything we can there as well. Now, there's this little area here where where gas could be. I've had that happen before. A lot of these little alcoves will have items on occasion. Those rats right there are going to be a big problem. And really, if I had to pick a main obstacle in Shellshock difficulty, it's going to be the rats, because them just blocking your path is a real pain in the ass. Especially since this is the only playthrough I actually found the lighter in, because there are so many combinations that you can find, or so many dog tags, and also the lockers are spread throughout. Chances are you're probably not going to find everything, and the lighter will probably be one of those items. So rats are a big deal. Meat is at a premium here. And notice that the beast at this point is not spawning. I think you could spawn him if you had the gun, if you had something to make noise, but for the most part, he will not spawn until you enter that hallway into the barracks side of the bunker, and that's when he becomes active. But for now, we can just sort of run around with impunity. And it's another reason why I haven't saved yet. Alright, so now we're going to enter the barracks. And as you can hear, the beast now becomes active. This is consistent through every difficulty of the game, so just another way that the beast's behavior is predictable and something that's not all that hard to manage. The only problem, really, is that the beast loves to just hang around on Shellshock. He just doesn't want to leave you alone. So if you want to move more than 1 mm per hour, that can sometimes be a problem. The door to this room is always locked and sometimes trapped, but we need that dog tag. Also, there's always a extra bag slot there on the wall, so grab that. So I do decide to save here, but that's really more out of, I don't know, laziness, because I just don't want to have to do all the busy work over and over again. But you could easily save your fuel and not save so early if you wanted to make some more significant progress. So right here I decide I want to take care of the rats, but I accidentally made the wrong item, so I reload. You can use just a gas can and a flare to light up the corpse there, which is what I do. And that's a main pathway that I want to travel through fairly often, and I'm not going to have the meat to take care of those rats. And on Shellshock difficulty, rats, or really anything, will make you bleed, and the bandages will just heal the bleed, but they won't heal your health. And if the rats are just nipping at you constantly and you're bleeding all the time, they're going to follow you around and alert the beast, which is something we cannot have. That fire does draw the creature out, so I'm going to hide there. So something I'm going to be doing a lot in this playthrough is just hiding out in the safe area where the generator is. And part of that obviously is because of safety, but also a part of that is respecting time, because going to the generator room is going to despawn the beast faster, and that's really the main reason to do it. Otherwise, you just have to wait for him to mill about and leave on his own, which is going to take an eternity. But going to the generator room will make him despawn and sort of just reset the map, which allows you to explore again. Not with 100% certainty, as in this playthrough later on, I go to reset, the music stops playing, for his stalking music stops playing, the generator room starts playing, but when I leave, he's still out there. So it's not foolproof, but for the most part it does work. I guess there's an item glitching out in the room to the left of that wall, and it scares me. I keep thinking it's the beast. So as I just recently mentioned, even though the generator music started playing, the beast was just right outside waiting for me. So you're never truly safe. Just keep that in mind. So the next challenge that Shellshock brings is that each wing of the bunker now has a fuse that you need to find in order for it to gain power, and all but one of the sections actually needs it. For this section we need it for the pump, for the prison we need it for the doors, and for the, I guess the barracks, I keep calling that other section the barracks, you need it to turn on the radio. Now, at least one of these sections will have the fuse in it already. For me, in this playthrough, it was the prison, which is very fortuitous because that's the hardest area to navigate in the entire game. The arsenal is kind of a dead-end area if you don't have the code yet, and even if you do, it still kind of is. You can go through that little space there and get into that other room. The beast cannot get through there, so you are safe if you need to get to safety in a pinch. However, do keep in mind that he can grab you while you're crawling through it. So I decided to explore the maintenance first, since it's the largest area by volume, I think. And really, it sort of makes sense, you know, progressing normally to go through this area first. It's also an easy area to get caught up in, especially since a lot of times there's rats along the hallway just to get here, and then the rats that separate the two sections of maintenance through that man-made tunnel also usually has a ton of rats in it, and I got kind of lucky there. So the beast is wandering, and of course he doesn't see me. I'm right next to this barrel. Unfortunately, this does lead to my one and only death in the entire playthrough, mostly because I think it's not whether or not he sees you. I think if he just enters your space, which is what happens right there, I think he collides with me through the barrel and he kills me. So I decided to divert to the soldiers' quarters instead. It is missing the fuse. That door to the left with the map is always locked, which is, you know, it's kind of a complaint that I have. This game is supposed to have a lot of replayability, and I love it. I think it's great. But too many elements of it are just consistent and predictable. There are doors that are locked every single time you play the game, and there seem to be items in the same place every time you play it. The only inconsistency in this difficulty really are the lockers, and that can just lead to a frustrating time, but a satisfying one if you can overcome it. We're just going to book it back to the safe room here, not taking any chances. We're just trying to forage for items at this point. We're looking for the key in the soldiers' quarters to get to the communications office. And despite the beast just reappearing right there, I actually think he's been pretty good about leaving me alone so far. Decent luck in that regard. But we haven't found a fuse at this point, and that becomes a problem later, where I really need a fuse, and I can't find it, mostly because it's either in the arsenal or it's in maintenance, which are large areas, and they're really hard to come over when you've got rats and the beast just spawn camping you the entire time. Though in the past I feel like I've been pretty lucky with how the fuses spawn, and I found them pretty quickly. In this playthrough, not so much. Again, I was pretty happy that the fuse for the prison was already in. This is some interesting behavior that the AI comes up with. I'm not sure if this is intended or not. Sort of rubber banding or something like that to try and catch the player off guard. But sometimes when you're running from one section of the map to another, or back to the bunker, safe room rather, the beast will just appear right there down the hallway right next to the door. It doesn't always happen, but I feel like if you were booking it too fast to the safe room, he can just be waiting there. Really, it's more of just a scare, though. I don't think I've ever been caught from that gag before, although in this playthrough, maybe it's just a Shellshock exclusive, but he was actually waiting for me in the safe room instead of in the hallway outside of it. So, just another thing to watch out for. But I think that's really interesting, and I wonder whether or not it's actually intended. I got lucky and he broke down that door already. I think that door is almost always locked. The door right next to it for sure was. And in order to get through the iron bars here, we have to break the lock. Another obstacle for Shellshock, because you may not have a grenade and you probably won't have the gun. I don't find the revolver in this entire playthrough, so luckily I had a grenade on me. I blow it up and just book it back to the safe room so that I can turn the power off. Just because I didn't want to be cornered by the beast. I wanted to make sure he wouldn't show up so I had the lights on for that specifically, even though gas is a scarce resource. Here's a good example of the game being tricky. The beast was actually roaming even though I couldn't hear it, and I couldn't hear his stalking music. I guess he was out of range. But I almost ran right into him, or I would have if I hadn't stopped myself. Another example of consistent locked doors and cabinets is that one right there. Always has a lock on it, and it almost always has trash loot in it, so it's not worth coming back for. So we've completed this section now. We have the arsenal code, and generally I believe that it's worth saving after you complete any one of the sections of the bunker, or however much you think you can get away with, but I think these are good milestones to go by. I had to reset this area, so I hadn't cleared the corpse already. And that's a good example of a bad meat throw, so you can definitely throw the meat out of range of the rats, and they won't go after it and they'll just eat you anyway, which is really annoying. And I just decided to reset there, since I had gotten hit by the rats, and I wasn't really satisfied with how that went, especially since I would have had to go back, and while I just picked up a meat, I didn't want to have to waste it. So I think a reload is wise. Reloads in general are something you should definitely consider. There's no shame in it. There's a locked door here that I don't know that I'll actually get anything useful out of, but since there's a tripwire with a grenade, I decided to set it off, and the chain reaction breaks that door down. So the beast spawns right there as I'm trying to pour gasoline on the rats. And see, I actually wait for him there. He breaks down the door. Look how close he gets. He is so close. He's very fast. You really can't dick around with him, even though I do like to give him the runaround. I end up spending a lot of time in this part of the arsenal, and I think he's just more active than usual when you're in this zone, though I don't have any way to prove that. He's pretty easy to evade, though. The biggest problem, of course, being the dynamite is in a dead end. Excuse the pun. But you're actually fairly safe in this zone, all things considered. I actually reset here because I forgot that this wing of the bunker did not have a fuse yet, and I started wasting the gas. Sped this clip up to 5 times speed, just to speed things along, obviously, but it's just an example of how long the beast can just stick around and annoy you. Really, it ends up being more of a test of endurance and patience than a test of difficulty or challenge. Getting pretty lucky with the numbers in the back of these dog tags. So, at this point, usually the tunnel leading to the next area is full of rats, at least 2 packs most of the time, but on this run I didn't get any. I was prepared, I had the meat necessary to get by it, but ended up not needing it. But that's a pretty much a consistent problem on every single Shellshock run I've ever played. And normal runs too. I mean, it's still a pain in the ass no matter what. I think that the maintenance is probably the hardest part of the game. Not just Shellshock, but on any difficulty. Part of that is just because you're basically triggering 2 events that are guaranteed for the beast to show up most of the time. You have to probably blow open or shoot the lock off that door down the stairs that sort of loops you back around to the entrance of the area. On this playthrough, I didn't have to, but on almost every other one I do because I don't have enough meat to get by the rat, every single rat pack. And then the other event is going to the chapel where he is guaranteed to spawn when you get the key to go up the stairs and retrieve the code that you require for the wrench. But really, I feel like if you can get past the maintenance, then the rest of the game will just sort of go a lot more smoothly. The prison is the second hardest area. That's going to be tough too, but uh, once you've gone through maintenance and saved, you're a lot closer. And the prison is a small area, so you can repeat that over and over again if you need to, whereas the maintenance is a much larger zone. So as you can see, lights flashing, I know he's around, and boom. Right there in the save room. I've never actually seen that happen before, when he does his little warping trick, but he was waiting for me inside the room for a change, and that did surprise the hell out of me, I gotta say. And then for good measure, he pops up in the safe room again, as I think it's safe and I'm trying to get back. I ended up cutting out about, I don't know, roughly 10 minutes worth of just waiting around in this cabinet, because he just wouldn't leave me alone. That's rough. I end up finding the shotgun on this playthrough, which is nice. That means I'll be able to deal with the Mad Gunner in the Roman tunnels later, as opposed to just trying to sneak around. I've had to do both on different Shellshock runs before, and I think that's probably the scariest event in the whole game, arguably. And we'll get to it eventually, but I think that this Frictional Games needs to win an award for sound design in that area. That's the most realistic gun firing and bullet sound effect. It's just amazing. I don't think that there's any other game like that. I don't understand why more companies just go to a range and fire weapons and then just record the sound. I don't know why they have to make weapons sound so fake, but in this game they sound fantastic. So now we're headed to the prison, which is why we have the power on at this point. We need the power to unlock the prison doors so we can get the bolt cutters. Now, the prison is predictable. The map room is always locked, and the room that leads to the grate where you have to use the wrench is also always locked. So, if there's an implement you can use around, like a spare grenade or one of those cinder blocks like there is here, it works out. But if there isn't, you're going to have to go search for one as well as the fuse and come back. I don't know why that door always needs to be locked, but it is. And it always just bugs the hell out of me. There's usually a bunch of traps around here too. I'm assuming this is just to compensate for the size of the area. Either way, it's just very annoying, and I've died plenty of times because the beast comes out of one of those two holes, usually the one by the entrance to this area, and cuts me off, and I just hit a dead end and he kills me. So with that being said, just always be prepared to jet if possible. You know, keep your bearings and try to feel out where he's going to appear, because otherwise it's just going to lead to a swift death. And even when you do have that door down, the animation for undoing the screws on the grate does take quite a while, and he can catch you in that as well. So timing has to also be precise in some way. The lights being on doesn't seem to help much either. He just seems to be a lot more active in this area in particular, so it's just deadly no matter what. Now obviously this area gets a lot easier once you've taken the grate off and you can unlock that door. Now you can play a little game of Ring Around the Rosie with the beast. If you ever see him coming, you can just unlock the door, run away. If you come back to the area, go through the door, lock it again. Everything's under control at this point. I ended up cutting out a large section of video here because I spent about, I don't know, roughly a half an hour looking for the last fuse, and I ran back to the other areas trying to find it, except for maintenance. And I couldn't, and I looked in one of the prison cells, the one at the very end, and it happened to be in there. I was sure for some reason that it couldn't spawn in one of those rooms, but it can. So, you know, check on it. Which brings me to the fact that the doors only stay open as long as the electricity is actually on, which I always thought was silly. But it's definitely worth checking all the cells if you can while the power is on so you don't waste it. I feel like you're probably going to end up wasting no matter what, just because the beast spawns when you turn the power on and the prisoner starts going nuts. So it may be worth it just to hit it, run back to the safe room, hang out for a while, then refill the generator, go back, and then collect everything. Reset here because I forgot the bolt cutters, of course. So the strat for me with the shotgunner always stays the same. On Shellshock difficulty, he's supposedly much quicker on the draw, but I don't really see that personally, or maybe I'm just always quicker than he is. Um, Obviously, you can use sound to just lure him away to other areas and get him to break down the doors you want by leading him to it. I have the shotgun here, so I just basically wait in place maybe try to throw some bottles to him to me, but usually he'll just wander over to me on his own, and then when he gets close enough to the kill zone, I just headshot him and he dies. So as you can see, the music started playing, and okay, his torso's twisting around. That's pretty funny. But the music for him noticing you started playing, and I still felt like I had plenty of time to line up a shot and kill him. It's not really that big a deal as long as you don't, you pull a Sekiro and don't hesitate. I end up collecting the rabbit toy, though I never end up using it since I always save the plunger for last. It's not really necessary, and it just doesn't ever really seem that useful to me anyway, to be honest, since I'm just trying to avoid him as much as possible. Alright, so it's time for the final showdown. I go ahead and blow the dynamite and then I save, so I don't have to keep doing that over and over again. I try to be a badass and put the beast into the pit, but that doesn't really work out. I end up having to reload a save once, just because I kept trying to get it to work, but I couldn't. Everything here works the same way as it does in the other difficulty, just trying to break the bridge, have them jump across, and then shoot him mid-jump. But I only had one shotgun round, and that was the only gun I had, so if that didn't work, I was just kind of SOL. But the normal way of just leaving is absolutely the way to go. I don't recommend actually trying to get him, or killing him, because moving those boxes is really quick and easy. As you'll see, I just give up on that and leave traditionally. I always thought the jumping the cat mechanic in this area was a little weird. It's not really explained all that well, and I didn't even think to do that until I saw a video of someone else doing it. Kind of wish they had given us an indication that it could even happen. So that's that. That's Shellshock difficulty for Amnesia the Bunker. I do enjoy this game quite a bit, and I'll just pop it in and play it every now and then. Same with The Dark Descent, another game that I love. I am almost sad that I ended up getting a run for this recording specifically because things went a little too well, and this was supposed to be, kind of a guide, but that's fine. I mean, I was perfectly happy to have a non-painful playthrough for a change. But yes, I did get lucky. I did get a lot of oil. I got a lot of meat specifically. As I said at the beginning, the rats are for sure the hardest part to deal with in the entire game. But if you get lucky with rat spawns or items, and you can navigate the prison, I think that Shellshock really isn't all that hard if you're willing to just wait around for the beast to leave you alone. And I just want to reiterate yet again that despite this game being advertised as, highly replayable and random, the game really isn't all that random. The beast behaves similarly pretty much every time you play it, pretty much throughout every difficulty as far as I can tell. A lot of the rooms are locked on every single playthrough. Items mostly the same. So, I obviously I didn't go and find every locker combination and every physical locker location, but I also never felt like I ever needed it. The game provides. I think it's going to give you the bare minimum to succeed, but it definitely is there. I think that Shellshock overall is probably the best experience that you can get in the bunker as a whole. It's the most tense, it's the most interesting, and probably the most fun. Again, I think if I had to critique this game in difficulty in any way, I would just say that I would like it to be a little more random. And I guess I'm also not completely in love with the randomized, somewhat randomized locker locations because, as I've mentioned before, there are items that you just miss out on entirely that seem critical, especially when you're dealing with so many rats. But other than that, I adore the game. I think it's great. If you haven't played it, go play it. If you've enjoyed this, great. I hope it's helped. I don't know that it really was all that informative, but I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.